Now, I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Let's see. No. I could be using my webcam microphone, which is not best. So I'm going to try and reactivate. Sorry about this, if you can hear me. I may have to stop and start again. Loud and clear. Oh, loud and clear. Okay. That's strange. Loud and clear. Okay. Right. I'm going to have to just look at my my own show for a minute to see what's happening. Terribly sorry. This, I mean, I spent the entire morning setting this up, and now it doesn't seem to work. No, that's my advert. No, I want subscriptions. I'm live. No, that's my advert. No, I want subscriptions. Oh, I am audible. That's jolly good. It doesn't say I am. No, that's my advert. No, I want subscriptions. Go away. Stop. Terribly sorry about all that. Yes, here we are. Perhaps I should have a beer. That would help. So, for those of you watching on the replay, fast forward to this part where I pour the beer. It's an exciting set. Yes, it's a Blue Peter, Blue Peter style cardboard. So if you're still there, Night Riders Gal, I am now audible apparently. Peppo and Alassa, you're still there. It's better than no sound, loud and clear. Okay. Well, Night Riders Gal, check Mod Squad Discord. Nancy's okay for Saturday evening, and I think Mary said, Mindy's mom said that she was too. Just depends whether it's this Saturday evening California time or next Saturday evening. I need to know. I mean, your time, because it'll be 7 o'clock in the morning my time Sunday. Otherwise, yeah, just conducting business. So let's get back to the beer. Hello. Oh, I'm going to put some music on as well. Tell me if you can hear the music. If you can't hear the music, can you now hear music? It's Heian period court music, which should be appropriate for what is about to occur. Cheers. Ah, yes, cheers. Kampai. So, can you hear sort of like plinky plonky? Oh, hello. Oh, that is Chuck. Hang on, it's a message from Chuck. What does she say? Oh, you have to join. Chuck is going to come into the comments. So shortly, Chuck will be in the comments with you. Oh, there you are. Hello, Chuck. Right. So, well, Chuck may know who this is in the picture here. And I shall call up my biography because what I'm going to do today, I thought I'd do something quite different. I thought I would do some story reading with a microphone, which is tucked behind here and works now. I'm going to be reading the famous short story Rashomon by this gentleman here in the photograph. This is Ryonusuke Akutagawa, and I've probably murdered that name. Tell me if I haven't, Chuck, if I've got it correct, or pronounced it correctly. I should be reading it in English, of course, because my Japanese is abysmal. But this chap here is quite famous in the West. You may not have heard of him, but relatively speaking, for a Japanese author, he's famous. There's a literary prize, Akutagawa Prize, named after him. And he was born in 1892. Didn't live very long, but in his short life, he did become quite famous. He basically took the short story form and restated old legends and medieval Japanese history in his own manner to tell stories that he wanted to. He produced about 150 short stories, and often the stories, as it says, I'm reading here, they addressed human dilemmas and struggles of conscience tinged with gothic darkness. Which is quite appropriate because it's nearly Halloween. And contributing to the mystique of this author was his suicide at the early age of 35. So quite gloomy, but good stories. He was born in Tokyo to a dairy merchant family, but his mother had a mental crash when he was 9 months old and couldn't look after him, and his father couldn't either, so he was given to his maternal uncle. His original surname was Nihara, but his adopted uncle was Akutagawa, and that's why he's called Ryonusuke Akutagawa. What else? Oh, I'll just close that. Hang on. So yes, I mean, he started writing these short stories, and the most famous of those is Rashomon, which I shall be shortly reading. And you may have heard of that from the Akira Kurosawa film, Rashomon, which is actually an amalgamation of various short stories of Akutagawa's based around the Rashomon, which Chuck knows about because she's doing something about that as well. But I decided to go with this short. I looked at Tanizaki, and I looked at other authors for. I couldn't find a short enough short story, so this chap's short story will do, and most people have heard of it because of the film. So I'm getting flute music going on. Can anybody else hear flute music? Waits for reply. Because the flute, I'm trying to get an appropriate tone going on. So it could be that there will be some slight technical difficulties. No flute music here. Hang on. Let's just see if I can increase the volume. It's supposed to be healing music of the old Japanese court. It's supposed to be. There, I've turned it up slightly. Nobody's hearing it. If nobody's hearing it, I'll turn it off because it's interfering with my concentration. I should also explain faintly. All right, I'll get rid of it. Because it's not assisting. I thought it would assist with the mood, but it's not. So I shall remove it, and that way we can concentrate on my Kamishibai. I should also explain that what this is a Kamishibai theatre, and Kamishibai happened in the late Meiji and early Showa period with itinerant storytellers going from village to village and town to town, taking a portable theatre with them, and they would set it up, and all the children would come running and buy sweets and toys from the storyteller, and that was their, in a sense, their entrance ticket for the Kamishibai performance. So you're getting it for free. No sweets and toys will be requested, or will be offered, and you will not have to pay. You will be getting it free. So they would do this, and they would have a series of pictures. I have spent the morning doing some sketches to illustrate certain parts of the story, but I've not. So you will have to use your imaginations in between as I tell the tale to fill in the gaps. They're just sort of key moments in the story that I've illustrated. So what I shall do, I shall set my Kamishibai up. I don't know how long it's going to take. I haven't timed it or anything. My pages my pages are just stuck on with blue tack, so they could fall off halfway through. So we'll see how it goes. And I shall. Where has it gone? Oh no, I have to go here and reopen that, and reopen that. Come on. Yes. Okay. Right. Transfer. Okay. Oh, yes. It fell a bit. It did fall. You have to push hard on the blue tack. There we are. Okay, here we go. Right, as you can see, there is my first picture. And I will go here and stream out. Okay, and here. Right. Oh, it's fallen off. It's fallen down again. It's fallen off. Press harder. There we go. Okay. Did I make it itself? Yes, I made this like last year. I did I was trying to do a video. I made a video, tried to make a video about the orime and hikiboshi and sort of tanabata, and I had pictures, and it didn't work. And this has been sort of languishing down the side of my wardrobe for a year. So I thought I'd reuse it. So let's get closer to the microphone for that authentic effect. And I shall start the story of Rashomon. So if everybody's sitting comfortably, please comment that you're sitting comfortably, and I shall begin. Waits to hear if everybody's sitting comfortably. Just one person has to comment that they're sitting comfortably, and I shall start. You're sitting comfortably. Thank you, Night Rider's gal. Okay, I am assuming that everybody else is now on the edge of their seat, and I shall start. Rashomon. Evening, and a lowly servant sat beneath the Rashomon, waiting for the rain to end. Under the broad gate, there was no one else, just a single cricket clinging to a huge red pillar, from which the lacquer was peeling here and there. Situated on a thoroughfare important as Suzuku Avenue, the Rashomon could have been sheltering at least a few others from the rain, perhaps a woman in a lacquered reed hat or a courtier with a soft black cap. Yet there was no one besides the man. This was because Kyoto had been struck by one calamity after another in recent years: earthquakes, whirlwinds, fires, famine, leading to the capital's extraordinary decline. Yes, just at that moment, my picture falls, yes. Old records tell us that people would smash Buddhist statues and pile the pieces by the roadside with flecks of paint and gold and silver foil still clinging to them, and sell them as firewood. With the whole city in turmoil, no one bothered to maintain the Rashomon. At this point, I should change the picture. Foxes and badgers came to live in the dilapidated structure, and they were soon joined by thieves. Finally, it became the custom to abandon unclaimed corpses in the upper story of the gate, which made the neighborhood an eerie place everyone avoided after the sun went down. Crows, on the other hand, flocked here in great numbers. During the day, they would always be cawing and circling the roof's high fishtail ornaments, and when the sky above the gate turned red after sunset, The crows stood out against it like a scattering of sesame seeds. They came to the upper chamber of the gate to peck the flesh of the dead. However, today, with the late hour, there were no crows to be seen. The only sign of them was their white droppings on the gate's crumbling steps, where long weeds sprouted from cracks between the stones. In his faded blue robe, the man had settled on the topmost of the 7 steps, and, worrying a large pimple that had formed on his right cheek, fixed his vacant stare on the falling rain. Excuse me. We noted earlier that the servant was waiting for the rain to end, but in fact, the man had no idea what he was going to do once that happened. Ordinarily, of course, he would have returned to his master's house, but he had been dismissed from service some days before, and, as noted earlier, Kyoto was in an unusual state of decline. His dismissal by a master he had served for many years was one small consequence of that decline. Rather than say that the servant was waiting for the rain to end, it would have been more appropriate to write that a lowly servant trapped by the rain had no place to go and no idea what to do. The weather, too, contributed to the sentimentalism of this Heian period menial. The rain had been falling since late afternoon and showed no sign of ending. He went on, half listening to the rain as it poured down on Suzaku Avenue. He was determined to find a way to keep himself alive for one more day. That is, a way to do something about a situation for which there was nothing to be done. The rain carried a host of roaring sounds from afar as it came to envelop the Rashomon. The evening darkness brought the sky ever lower, until the roof of the gate was supporting a dark, heavy cloud on the ridge of its jutting tiles. To do something when there was nothing to be done, he would have to be prepared to do anything at all. If he hesitated, he would end up starving to death against an earthen wall or in the roadside dirt. Then he would simply be carried back to this gate and discarded upstairs like a dog. But if he was ready to do anything at all... His thoughts wandered the same path again and again, always arriving at the same destination. But no matter how much time passed, the if remained an if. Even as he told himself he was prepared to do anything at all, he could not find the courage for the obvious conclusion that, if all I can do is become a thief. The man gave a great sneeze and dragged himself to his feet. The Kyoto evening chill was harsh enough to make him yearn for a brazier full of warm coals. Darkness fell, and the wind blew unmercifully through the pillars of the gate. Now even the cricket was gone from its perch on the red lacquered pillar. Beneath his blue robe and yellow undershirt, the man hunched his shoulders and drew his head down as he scanned the area around the gate. If only there was some place out of the wind and rain with no fear of prying eyes, where I could have an untroubled sleep. I would stay there until dawn, he thought. Just then, he caught sight of a broad stairway, also lacquered red, leading to the upper story of the gate. Anybody up there is dead. Taking care lest his sword, with its bare wooden handle, slipped from its scabbard, the man set one straw-sandaled foot on the bottom step. A few minutes later, halfway up the broad stairway, he crouched, cat-like, holding his breath as he took stock of the gate's upper chamber. Firelight from above cast a dim glow on the man's right cheek. The servant had not considered the possibility that anyone but dead people could be up here. But climbing 2 or 3 more steps, he realized that someone was not only burning a light, but moving it from place to place. He saw the dull yellow glow flickering against the underside of the roof, where spiderwebs hung in the corners. No ordinary person would be burning a light up here in the Rashomon on a rainy night like this. With all the stealth of a lizard, the servant crept to the top tread of the steep stairway. Then, hunching down and stretching out his neck as much as possible, he peered fearfully into the upper chamber. Excuse me. Children. There he saw a number of carelessly discarded corpses, as the rumours had said. But he could not tell how many because the lighted area was far smaller than he thought it would be. All he could see in the dim light was that some of the corpses were naked, while others were clothed. Women and men seemed to be tangled together. It was hard to believe that all of them had once been living human beings. So much did they look like clay dolls lying there with arms flung out and mouths wide open, eternally mute. Shoulders and chests and other such prominent parts caught the dim light, casting still deeper shadows on the parts lower down. The stink of rotting corpses reached him, and his hand flew up to cover his nose. But a moment later, the hand seemed to forget its task when a powerful emotion all but obliterated the man's sense of smell. For now, the servant's eyes caught sight of a living person crouched among the corpses. Hang on. I have to adjust my brightness. You can't really see. Turn that down a bit. Pictures should come a bit clearer. Okay. There, dressed in a rusty black robe, was a scrawny old woman, white-haired and monkey-like. She held a burning pine stick in her right hand as she stared into the face of a corpse. Judging from the long hair, the body was probably a woman's. Moved by 6 parts terror and 4 parts curiosity, the servant forgot to breathe for a moment. To borrow a phrase from a writer of old, he felt as if the hairs on his head were growing thick. Then the crone thrust her pine torch between 2 floorboards and placed both hands on the head of the corpse. Like a monkey searching for fleas on its child, she began plucking out the corpse's long hairs, 1 strand at a time. A hair seemed to slip easily from the scalp with every movement of her hand. Each time a hair gave way, a little of the man's fear disappeared, to be replaced by an increasingly violent loathing for the old woman. No, this could be misleading. He felt not so much loathing for the old woman as a revulsion for all things evil, an emotion that grew in strength with every passing minute. If now someone were to present this lowly fellow again with the choice he had just been mulling beneath the gate, whether to starve to death or to turn to thievery, he probably would have chosen starvation without the least regret. So powerfully had the man's hatred for evil blazed up, like the pine torch of the old woman. The servant had no idea why the crone was pulling out the dead person's hair, and thus could not rationally call the deed either good or evil. But for him, the very act of plucking hair from a corpse on this rainy night up here in the Rashomon was itself an unpardonable evil. Naturally, he no longer recalled that only moments before, he himself had been planning to become a thief. So now the servant, with a mighty thrust, leapt from the stairway, and grasping his sword by the bare hilt, he strode forcefully to where the old woman crouched. Terrified at the sight of him, the crone leapt up as if launched by a catapult. "Where do you think you're going?" he shouted, blocking her way. Panic-stricken, she stumbled over corpses in an effort to flee. She struggled to break past him, but he pushed her back. For a time, the two grappled in silence among the corpses, but the outcome of the struggle was never in doubt. The servant grasped the old woman's arm, sheer skin and bone like the foot of a chicken, and finally twisted her to the floor. "What were you doing there?" he demanded. "Tell me now, or I'll give you a piece of this." Shoving her away, he swept his sword from its scabbard and thrust the white steel before her eyes. The old woman said nothing. Arms trembling, shoulders heaving, wide eyes straining from their sockets, she kept her stubborn silence and struggled to catch her breath. Seeing this, the servant realized that this old woman's life or death was governed entirely by his own will. The new awareness instantly cooled the hatred that had been burning so violently inside him. All he felt now was the quiet pride and satisfaction of a job well done. He looked down at her and spoke with a new tone of gentleness. "Don't worry. I'm not with the magistrate's office. I'm just a traveller who happened to be passing beneath the gate. I won't be tying you up or taking you away. I just want you to tell me what you've been doing up here at a time like this." The old woman stretched her wide eyes still wider and stared hard at the servant. Her red-lidded eyes had the sharpness of a predator bird's. Then, as if chewing on something, she began to move her lips, which seemed joined with her nose by all her deep wrinkles. He could see the point of her Adam's apple moving on her scrawny neck, and between her gasps, the voice that issued from her throat reached the servant's ears like the cawing of a crow. I was pulling out hair to make her weak." The servant was startled and disappointed at how ordinary the woman's answer turned out to be. But along with the disappointment, the earlier hatred and a cold contempt came back to fill his heart. The woman seemed to sense that what he was feeling. Still holding in one hand the long hair she had stolen from the corpse, she mumbled and croaked like a toad as she offered this explanation. I know it may be wrong to pull out dead people's hair, but these people here deserve what they get. Take this woman, the one I was pulling the hair from. She used to cut snakes into 4-inch pieces and dry them and sell them as dried fish at the palace guardhouse. If she hadn't died in the epidemic, she'd be still out there selling her wares. The guards loved her fish, and they bought it for every meal. I don't think she was wrong to do it. She did it to keep from starving to death. She couldn't help it. And I don't think what I'm doing is wrong either. It's the same thing. I can't help it. If I don't do it, I'll starve to death. This woman knew what it was to do, what you have to do. I think she understood what I'm doing to her. The servant returned his sword to its sheath, and resting his left hand on the hilt, listened coolly to her story. Meanwhile, his right hand played with the festering pimple on his cheek. As he listened, a new kind of courage began to germinate in his heart, a courage he had lacked earlier beneath the gate. One that was moving in a direction opposite to the courage that had impelled him to seize the old woman. He was no longer torn between starving to death or becoming a thief. In his current state of mind, the very thought of starving to death was so nearly banished from his consciousness that it became all but unthinkable for him. You're sure she would, eh? The servant pressed her, with mockery in his voice. Then, stepping toward her, he suddenly shot his right hand from his pimple to the scruff of her neck. As he grasped her, his words all but bit into her flesh. You won't blame me, then, for taking your clothes. That's what I have to do to keep from starving to death. He stripped the old woman of her robe, and when she had tried to clutch at his ankles, he gave her a kick that sent her sprawling onto the corpses. 5 swift steps brought him to the opening at the top of the stairs. Tucking her robe under his arm, he plunged down the steep stairway and into the depths of the night. It did not take long for the crone, who had been lying there as if dead, to raise her naked body from among the corpses. Muttering and groaning, she crawled to the top of the stairway in the still burning torchlight. Her short white hair hung forward from her head. As she peered down toward the bottom of the gate, she saw only the cavernous blackness of the night. What happened to the lowly servant? No one knows. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Kamishibai. You can now buy your sweets and toys. And I hope you enjoyed that, despite the technical difficulties that occurred. You're all hopefully all on the edge of your seats there. I can tell. Oh, I need a beer after that. It's been quite a short story. It was shorter than I anticipated, but I don't think I could have kept going for an hour. I'm just glad that the microphone worked after all in the end. I'm the new Mr. Rogers. Right, hang on. Let's get the lighting is poor for my Kamishibai. So I shall not take that up as a profession. I don't think I would earn a lot of money doing that. Oh, that's why. That's why. There we go. Okay. Right. Well, Ryonusuke Akutagawa wrote the story. I didn't do much. I just read someone's English translation. I was desperately looking for an English translation. I messed about with my printer and all sorts of things to try and get that. I was even contemplating what you're supposed to do really is write the story on the back of the pictures, and it's all supposed to go smoothly, and you have to have like separate pictures which you slide in and out and everything. But learning, yes, culture. Anybody fallen asleep? I don't know. I couldn't see where I couldn't see my. I must have been just looking down, staring at the screen. Spent the entire morning trying to set this up. If I do this, you'll see. I shall break the fourth wall. Hang on, and move back, and you'll see what the amount. There we are. That is the reality of my Kamishibai. Yes, I've got the technical things here. I've got a laundry basket, a plank, a cardboard box, a snare drum, another plank, and a black cloth, and that provides the support for this, and 2 old black curtains. Oh dear. I'll move back here and lean on the wall casually. Props. Yes, it's all props in my spare room. So, yes, Night Riders Gal. How's it looking for tonight, as it were, at 10 p.m. your time? Or Mindy's mom said something about after Tabby Eats live. Yes, it's my makeshift Kamishibai. It's paper stuck onto cardboard and painted with acrylic paints. It wouldn't last very well if I was to take it out and about. But yes, actually, Kamishibai is mostly children's stories, and not such gruesome things with like corpses and people pulling their hair off dead bodies and stuff. Are you still there, Chuck? What did you think? Is it something I should repeat? I've been meaning to perhaps repeat the sketching show, but that's quite a setup as well. Getting all the stuff downstairs. I did use the materials I got for the sketching show to actually do the pencil sketches for each of the pictures, and then I used actually a calligraphy pen, Japanese calligraphy pen to draw them with. Chuck has fallen asleep. I'm not sure about that. Jackanory, eat your heart out. Yes. I mentioned on Discord, it won't quite be like Christopher Walken reading Three Little Pigs, but ASMR. Yes, I have to get close to the microphone like this to do that. But it was a bit awkward. My microphone doesn't reach as far as my Kamishibai. So you're getting quite a bit of room echo. But at least you were able to hear it. That's the main thing. Oh. So actually, I mean, if Chuck is still there, I don't know. If you're still there, Chuck, we can make a joint announcement that Chuck will be next week's guest. And we are currently working on the format for that. And she will be assessing me next week. I have a job to do. Krakenori. I don't know what's that. DNA? No. Jackanori. Yes. When I was little, but Krakenori. No. Sounds dubious. Oh, you like this better, Night Rider's Gal? Okay. Perhaps I could do a sort of combination. I could do live storytelling and sketching at the same time. Oh, you're still there, Chuck. I can't quite make out that emoji. It looks like a taco or a Dorito with something on it. Hang on. Well, it was. I shall have to look at the replay and see how I did. I wanted it to be more like this with the mic, but I couldn't look at the screen and get my head in the right position. Oh. Yes, I would have, if I'd thought about it earlier, I perhaps would have done some more illustrations. At a certain point, I did tell you to use your imaginations, but I could have illustrated one or two more scenes, I think, because it wasn't quite a long story, or as long as I thought it would be. But I don't think in Japanese towns and villages in the Showa period they told anything much longer than half an hour anyway. So I was being authentic in that sense. I do miss not having a chair though. That's the problem. All right, dark stories. Well, I suppose I could have been on. Now on Dave, Simon NoChaNoMa. right after Top Gear. Yeah, I finished. I did the illustration you saw in the advert. I did that. I think Thursday, and I thought, oh dear, I better do the rest. But then I went out for my dinner at my usual cafe last night, thinking I would do some illustrations when I got back, but spent half the time setting this up, and so I did the illustrations this morning from about 9 till 11, quickly. They seem to. I quite like the one with the crow. That one. And that's supposed to be a fox, and there's a Buddha statue, sort of collapsed Buddha statue. Yes, there'll be more artistry next week because Chuck is requiring me to do illustrations, which you will then judge. So you'll see more of that next week. She'll see them first, but. I mean, the nearest we got to this in the UK, or there's nothing like this in Belgium. Sort of storytelling with pictures would be, a lass would know, would be a Punch and Judy. It's sort of like it's the Japanese version of Punch and Judy, almost. That's the way to do it. Yes, I could recommend, if you haven't read any of Akutagawa's works, just check in your library. Apparently, he's famous in the West as well, and check out those short stories of his. I mean, the short stories, so it's not too difficult to sort of get through them. But Chuck, I was messaging with Chuck, wasn't I? And she was doing a story doing something based on a story. So I thought, I'd go and look that story up, and discovered the book that the story was in, and it also contained Rashomon, this one. And actually, in the film by Akira Kurosawa from 1950, he combines various stories centered around the Rashomon Gate, which was an actual gate in like 8th century, or built in the 8th century in Kyoto. And then in this story, in the 12th century, it's dilapidated. But around that gate, various stories are woven in this short story book. I perhaps could have done the one that you were considering, but I didn't get to the end. And I did get to the. Yes, I did get to the. That's also quite violent. I would have had to do much more pictures for that. And in the film, one of the main story in the film is based on a story called "In a Grove," and that's a psychological study in people telling what they thought they saw, and each story contradicting the other story, about a samurai and his courtesan who are attacked in a wood by a thief or a robber, and the samurai dies, and then all the various witnesses are brought forward. That was quite complicated. I decided not to do that. Punch and Judy scared you. Yes, yes. Sort of. They're quite creepy sort of. I mean, it's the creepiness of the dolls, of the Punch and Judy character dolls. What actually goes on is quite sort of ludicrous and also quite violent. But it's the dolls that are fairly creepy. So yes, I've got the book here, but it's all in Dutch, and that's why I was like desperately looking on the internet to try and find English version of Rashomon. I don't think it. I mean, Pepper would have understood it if I'd done the story entirely in Dutch, but wouldn't have been much help to the rest of you. And actually, as well, one thing I noticed when reading the story, Rashomon is described as being his masterpiece, of Akutagawa's masterpiece. Now, when I was reading that English translation, it was okay, but I wouldn't have described it, the prose that he used or anything, as a masterpiece, unless of course that in the original Japanese it was richer, much richer, and in the something got lost in translation. That could be the case. I mean, I had Chuck. I'd have to discuss with you about that. You've probably read it in the original Japanese, but whether it has slightly more sort of richness to it. Yes, Mr. Punch used to hit everyone, and there was a crocodile that ate people, and a policeman. None of that in Kamishibai, though. Ah. So it's kind of a bit of an anticlimax now, really, isn't it? I mean, yeah, there should be the interval or the cartoons between the next showing will be at some undisclosed point in the future. I might, since people liked it, I might try and do another one at some point. As I say, perhaps combine it with the sketching, live sketching and storytelling. New format for Simon NoChaNoMa. Yes, and it's fortunate about the music. The music would have helped. I had some like Heian court music going on in the background. And I'm terribly sorry about the. I had to restart the computer for some reason, and when it does that, it sort of disconnects my my microphone and chooses other microphones. So, not entirely my fault. Technology sort of has a mind of its own. Well, I'm probably going to have to round up earlier than usual because the story finished too soon. Yes, I suppose everybody loves being read to. I suppose that's the appeal of the podcast as well. People like to listen to people talking, as long as it's relatively interesting, and told well or spoken well. It certainly saves on editing, that's for sure, and having to come up with stories. I mean, yes, If I had to come up with my own stories, that would be difficult. I used to. Well, yes, I used to read stories to my boys when they were little. I used to make them up as well. Winnie the Pooh stories and Teletubbies. Um, were the Teletubbies a thing in America? I don't know. But yes, I used to sort of make and do the voices, and just to sort of, you know, there were certain stories obviously that existed, and I'd read them. But when I run out of those stories, I had to make them up. Thomas the Tank Engine, and all that kind of thing. But I think by the time they were about sort of 7 or 8, they didn't want stories anymore. Yes, but there'll be no Teletubbies on the Simon NoChaNoMa show. Oh. Oh, you're off, Peppo. Okay, right. I'm going to round up shortly too, and tidy all this up and put my wash basket, my drum, and my cardboard box back where it belongs, and get some semblance of normality. And then I'm going to do some more sketching, Chuck, because I'm going to do those designs. Keep me happy, keep me occupied. Although I do have to go and get groceries, mundane things. Oh, you had to read all the Harry Potter books. I don't remember. I don't think so. I think my kids came quite late to that. They did basically just watch the videos, so I didn't have to do anything for that. Right. Well, this is going to be a slightly earlier end to the show. I thank you very much for putting up with my technical difficulties, and I'm glad you enjoyed watching me and hearing me do the story. It was all kind of unpracticed. I had one go at trying to do it before I started. I thought, all right, that'll do. Not realizing that I couldn't be heard. So next time it'll be better, and I shall perhaps find another short story to tell you. So for now, everybody, thank you very much for watching and listening, and glad you enjoyed it. And for those on the replay, you can fast forward to the part where the microphone kicks in. And I'll see you all again next week with Chuck. Okay, thanks everyone. Ooh, don't knock my beer over, Simon. Okay. Bye, everybody.